Hello and welcome to the Indie Gamer Plays. I am the Indie Gamer, and this week I am playing Osmos. Osmos is a casual physics-based game. I suppose it kind of crosses puzzle and strategy if you had to throw it into genres, but Hemisphere don't, so they just have it. It's just listed as a casual game on Steam, a casual indie game, so... Anyway, this game is made by Hemisphere Games, which is made up of two guys and their friends, and the two guys kind of come from pretty big backgrounds. So they are Eddie Boxerman, who previously worked for Ubisoft Montreal, and David Burke, who was an Unreal 3 developer from Epic Games. So they're guys with pretty big histories behind them. Work with pretty big companies, and now they are Hemisphere Games. This seems to be the only thing that they've made so far. It was released in 2009, and since then it was released on Steam. It's been on sale loads. Like, it pops up on the flash sales so often, so you can pick it up cheap. And since release, it's also been ported to Android and iOS devices. This game actually won iPad Game of the Year. And the iPad version actually has some extra multiplayer functionality. So you can play multiplayer between iPads and iPhones locally. Which is great, because before I knew about this, I always thought that this would be a great game to play multiplayer. So, yeah. But if you do purchase the Steam version is only single player, which is a bit of a shame, because it's about 3 times the price of the iOS version. But, I guess the Steam version has a few more mechanics that probably don't translate to the iOS version anyway. So, in this game, you play as a cell, one of these things floating around in the background. I think they call them modes in the game, but it's not really mentioned. You don't really need to know the names of things. I just always think they look like cells, like you're kind of playing in some kind of weird Petri dish or something. But the tutorial is these 7 missions or 8 missions here. These core missions here are all done in the tutorial. And then immediately the game splits into 3 different paths. The F path is for force missions, which is all based around forces, and generally you're orbiting something like a sun kind of. I'll show you that one first. Actually, we'll go for the force gameplay first. The other gameplay is survival of the fittest and ambient, so we'll go for the force gameplay first, because I think I like this game mode the best. So I'll show you a little bit of this first. Now, in force, the goal is to become the biggest. You become the biggest by absorbing other little orbs. You're this one here. You move around by expelling little bits of yourself outside of your body. Doing this makes you smaller, but by doing this you dodge things that are bigger than you, because they can absorb you, and you try and hit smaller things so that you can absorb them and become bigger. And the aim of most of the mission is to become the biggest, or to absorb a target who is also trying to become bigger. Different modes have different characteristics. So in this, everything is just orbiting this giant sun-like thing in the middle. And obviously things in the middle will go faster and things on the outside will move slower, because that's how physics works. And now my goal is to become the biggest. If you can see here, you can zoom right out and zoom right in, and there's also the ability to speed up the game and slow down the game. This also affects the game music as well, which speeds up and slows down to match the speed of the gameplay, which is quite good. The music's very ambient. It's rather zen. They actually use that on their website to describe this game. So a little bit more, and I will probably be the biggest. There doesn't seem to be anything else that's really rivaling my size on the map, so get this guy. There we go, level complete. and you can turn on orbit visualization, which lets you see the orbital path you're taking around this sun cell thing. I'm going to keep calling it the sun because that's just what it reminds me of. And then it auto continues you down this path until you choose to stop following this path. Now this is, I think everything's being attracted to the things that are bigger than itself, so instead of orbiting something, it's just working like gravity. Everything is, the forces are acting on everything apart, as well as me, but I'm the only thing that isn't as bound by these forces because I can move myself, and everything else is just bound by random movement, which is quite cool. There are more or less ultimate replayability value on this because you can just Alt-Z any level and it'll just restart it and it'll be a completely different level with the same goal, but everything will start in a different place. You can restart the same or you can restart different, so that's quite cool, and it means that every time you play the game the levels will be slightly different. So my goal here is to absorb the repulsor, which is this little blue thing here, which should try and move away from me as I get close to it. There we go. But I think I'm big enough to just plow myself into it. There we go. That worked there. So I'm just gonna drop out to the main menu and I'll stop playing Force missions and I'll start playing Ambient missions. We'll go for these ones next. So again, the goal is to become the biggest. And in this, everything's just moving around. I think everything is at a set trajectory and it'll just keep moving that way. I don't think things are being affected by anything around them. Like in the Forces mission, there's no forces acting on these orbs other than the forces that they started the mission with. So it's a bit more random, and these missions seem to be a bit more chilled out. It's not as hectic, there's not as much going on, which is quite cool. So you can just take your time, which is actually something it says on the website sometimes. Just sitting back and watching what happens is good because you get to places without making yourself get smaller. So you can just speed up time and just let your guy just zoom around and see where he goes, and there's no negative benefit for you doing that. Everything else moves at the same speed as you when you slow down time. Also, another neat little thing I like about this game is at the bottom of the screen it shows the artist and the song you're listening to from the soundtrack, which is quite cool. So if there's any music that really piques your interest, you can just search for it. And here we go, matter plus antimatter equals annihilation. Press space to continue. So I presume I have to become the biggest without touching any antimatter, because anything that hits antimatter just disappears. I don't think they absorb, or maybe they do, I'm not sure quite how it works. We'll see. Again, I played this game briefly when I got it in a Humble Indie bundle, but since then, and since I've had my new system, I haven't touched this game other than to play the tutorial about 10 minutes ago. Now this thing runs on almost anything. It used to run on my laptop perfectly smoothly. My laptop was a HP Pavilion Entertainment PC from about 5 years ago, and this just ran fine. So let's try and absorb this antimatter and see what happens. I think I just got smaller, so that's obviously what happens. If I try and absorb the antimatter, I get smaller, so I've got to dodge around the map and make sure I don't hit any of that. Everything's getting a bit sparse. If it's impossible for you to complete a mission, I think it pops up and tells you failed and tells you to start again. So that can happen, and that might happen here. They're running out of things that are smaller than me. There's a few more, but they're so far away I might have to speed up time to try and get there a bit quicker. Let's just... Here we go. So that's another benefit of the speed up time mechanic. Also, you can see the top of the screen, there's a little bar. The blue bar is my biomass, and the white dot is the biomass of the biggest thing on the map. So that can change, as well as mine. So the goal can constantly shift. If you spend too long in the level, the thing that you're trying to get bigger than might just be infinitely large. So there is kind of a haste to what you're doing. So just need to try and find something. Here we go. There's a few things down here. Just take it slow. Maybe try and speed up a little bit. Oh. Cocked that up a little bit there. Missed it completely. That's my own fault. Although we're bouncing back in the right direction now, so. So as you can see, as things are hitting the antimatter, they're vanishing, so there's less matter on the map and more, well, not more, oh, bollocks, there we go. So that sphere became bigger than me just before I managed to absorb it, and I got absorbed by it instead. So that's the way it works. Things that are red are things that are bigger than you and they can absorb you, and things that are blue are things that you can easily absorb. Now the final set of missions are these survival of the fittest missions. I believe these ones are more or less you've just got to survive, and there's lots of stuff on the map. Lots of stuff that acts. Yeah, here we go. The goal has become huge. So I've got to beat everything on this map. So there's things that can move. The green ones that look a bit like kind of like embryo cells that have got those little blobs inside them. They select how they move around like I do. So they're trying to absorb everything, including me. And I'm trying to become the only thing left on the map, more or less. That's the only way to win this. It tends to come down to you and one other thing, which will be either bigger than you or smaller than you. So it's either you chasing it or it chasing you. So if it ends up with it chasing you, you've got to be very careful about how you move to get away from it. Because obviously if you're moving directly away from it, you're firing off these little bits of you and getting smaller, and it is just absorbing them. So it's definitely important how you move around on this. So oh, it's bigger than me again now. If I can get these little ones here, I might be able to make a difference. Oh god, no. Ooh. I'm just trying to get these two little small ovariums that are moving around the map, so they can just be me and the big one, but just, damn it, doesn't look good. Here we go, this is what happens. If it gets to a point that's more or less futile, the game gives you a little warning and tells you to restart. So I've obviously cocked this one up a little bit. I think it's, yeah, it's basically over now. I think it's absorbed over half of what's left, and I can't, there's no way of me getting bigger than it, so I can just restart the mission and play it again. These ones tend to be the most challenging, and it's things like this that made me think, oh, that this would be a good game to play multiplayer with you and a few friends. But on a huge scale it would be amazing, just you and 20 friends on a huge map all moving around. The game might only last a couple of minutes, but it would be amazing to play a game like that. I don't know the limitations of the iOS multiplayer, so I can't tell you anything about that. I only have the PC version of this game. I do own an iOS device, but I don't think I'd want to play this on my iPod Touch. I don't think it would be the best experience. If I had an iPod, maybe I'd invest the $2.99 that this game costs on the Apple Store to get this, but I don't know. It wouldn't be having it on the PC. I don't think it's worth it just for the multiplayer component. It's definitely worth, if you don't own the game, buying it for iOS device instead, if you own a device that's got a big enough screen that this kind of game will work properly. But if you're just looking for the single player experience, I'd just wait for it to go 66% off on Steam or 75% off and just buy it then instead, because it's fun. It is a fun game. The soundtrack's great, and oh, I think this doesn't look good again. I think I'm going to lose this mission again now. There's definitely a way of... There's a right way of playing this and a wrong way of playing it, and this is probably the wrong way. I'm just bouncing around now. Hopefully I'll just avoid that long enough. Yeah, it doesn't look good again. I'm going to lose now, so let's just... Yeah, there we go. So anyway, that was me being terrible at another game. That was Osmos. And as I said, if you want to buy this game, it's available on the Apple Store for iOS devices. It works for the iPad and the iPod and the iPhone, so definitely go and check it out on there. $2.99. Where can you go wrong? That's cheaper than a Subway sandwich. So yeah. And if you want to check it out on Steam, £6.99. As I said, I wouldn't pay £6.99 for this, but if it goes on sale for something like 60-70% off, definitely worth getting if you've got the spare cash, the spare loose change that this game will cost at that price. So I am the Indie Gamer. This has been the Indie Gamer Plays. Like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next week.